Mombasa County, where the Saroba White Sands is the Kotu Secretary General Francis Atwoli. In the first part of the show, we were talking about that housing levies, controversial matter. It still remains in court. It comes back for mention on the 20th of May, and the SG has told us that if in fact they do not agree with FKE, they are decided to pull out of this matter. In the second part, I want us to begin with proposed increment of minimum wage to 15%. And talk to me about the sustainability of that, because on your own admission, 5% was gazetted just in January this year. Now we want another further 15%. And part of even reading that affidavit, you were talking about some kind of moves would go perhaps to be counterproductive. For instance, and making Kenya attractive for people who want to start businesses. Because if the cost of running a business is that expensive, then of course I will not be encouraged to come. So should we be moving so fast, so soon to ask for another increment minimum wage, because it does have implications?
That is the idea the Federation of Kenya Employers had in mind, yes. That if they would have delayed to gazette the 5% of last year and it goes up to May this year, then they would have asked the government not to give us another more increase because of the delayed 5% increase, which they would have demanded that let it be gazetted on May Day or after May Day, and then we lose 1 year out. Let me tell you, that language of saying the cost of doing business in Kenya is very expensive and what have you, these are people who have never traveled outside Nairobi. Kenya, or outside Kenya. Kenya remains the place where any investor can invest and get the labor at the cheapest, more than any other country known to everybody. Kenyans are hardworking people. Kenya, in fact, if they are given a target, they go beyond that target in a matter of minutes. Kenyans are hardworking people. And when we demand something, we have already carried out our economic research on all our enterprises. And we have a very vibrant economic and research department at Kotu. We don't enter into anything or demand anything which is out of that. They would have looked at consumer price indices, cost of living indices, and all this, the inflation rate, and where we are as far as our economy is concerned and what we are doing. Let me tell you, people are running away with billions and billions and billions of money. Kenya, if it was another country, the economy would have been shut down long time ago. We are fortunate that we are hardworking people. This country can be another Geneva of Africa, can be any country, name it, where we can sit down and have a serious leadership that can put some mechanism in place to spur economic growth, and everybody will be employed in this country. So we are not just demanding out of blues that we want 15% general wage increase. This can be met, this can be done. If we would have narrowed it down to our collective bargaining agreements, then we would have thought otherwise, because this would have been segmented as per our industrial sectors. But we have said we want general wage increase, and we know we can get.
Let me ask you this from a point of the person running business and the employer. So last year, 5% added. This year, we want 15%. Imagine a situation where it's granted. As a businesswoman, if I have 3 employees, that means I'm paying more. And that, you see, adding minimum wage does not mean production is increasing or there's more sufficiency. So if I'm paying more but getting what I was getting before, then I'll start thinking like a business person, cut down perhaps the number of employees, downsize, close business, venture into other businesses. That's a kind of implication or boomerang your suggestion so soon after another increment poses, don't you think?
That is not how it is looked into. You are a Kenyan. You have seen that after every 3 months or 1 month, the prices on essential commodities go up, particularly petrol products. When they go up, the wages don't go up. And when they go up, the employers and those who produce or manufacturers, they pass it over to the same employees, people who are employed, to meet those things. And they go even higher to maximize profit out of that. So what we are saying, let us push workers, because normally you are not considered when the petroleum products go up, and you are required to pay more fare in the matatu. You know, when the petroleum products go up, all rates, even including rates, the rates go up, your house allowance, you need to pay more, and everything. So we are saying, when they do that, The wages remain where they are. And that is the gap we look at. And then we say, let us also move, even if it is not closer, let us move there. And you know, Kenyans, let me tell you, no any investor can invest in a country where he or she cannot maximize profit. And that is why we are saying, if we ask them one day that those who are dissatisfied with the Kenyan services from the Kenyan workers, let them reallocate. Nobody will reallocate. Because Kenya is a satellite of economic activities in this region. Yeah. A lot of investments here.
So let me ask you, do you think Kenya has a problem of wage bill? Because here you are advocating, rightfully so, for workers whom you represent to get an increase in minimum wage. Then you're also on record advocating for state officers who are some of the best paid in the world, living lavish lives to have more money. So will we be a country that just pays people?
Let me tell you something. I was around for some time. Like in this region, we are now at the coast. We had leaders here like the late Ronald Ngala. We had Sharif Nasiri here. We had Ramadan Kajembe here. We had leaders here in this particular place where we are. We had Said Ahmed. We had Mohammed Jahazi. These people are being paid. If one of them, if you ask them, some of them are still living 8,000 shillings. And when they were members of parliament, there was no lineup of people following them for handouts. I said this. And when I said this, I went to the social media. I said, wow, beggars who beg members of parliament should form a union. Because they were all at me, oh, the Secretary General of Court, that is a misplaced thing. In reality today in Kenya, you cannot be elected even a chairman of your cattle dip at home if you don't give out something.
But isn't it because during elections, the members of parliament and other elected officials come to hand out money to be elected? So it is the people who then continue with the expectation after elections, ulitupatia siku election. Yeah. Endelea kuchota basi.
No,
they create that culture. Yeah. So why should you have mercy on them?
That is why I say they are the same taxpayers. To punish them, let them pay me well. But I don't want to go that way. Yeah, because if they don't abandon that culture, then let them pay me.
So what you're saying, on one hand, you're saying increase minimum wage. When they're given, imagine they're given that 15%, then you're saying increase MPs. So that money will move from workers to go pay other officers. So how will it help their lives?
Let me tell you, if you live in a country that has some confused things, until recently, as I'm talking to you, this is the only country in south of Sahara which has no wages and incomes policy. We are trying to come with one now. There is no that policy. We don't have infrastructural policy, or even on our own things like roads and what we put on infrastructure. Until when you find it dilapidated, we have potholes everywhere, is when the government will start coming up, oh, let us carpet this and so on. We don't have standards, you know, particularly standards related to engineering instructions policy, that where you have a clerk of works who adhere to the engineering instructions to make sure that if this is a public building being put up, it also, what will come out will be equivalent to the amount of money that was put in. This is a confused country. That's why you see all those confused things. But in our own portion, as Kenyans, we must say what we know. Look, this housing allowance members of parliament are asking. It is not only those members of parliament who are asking. Even the SRC, which is questioning, they are, as state officers, they are getting house allowance. And they want to confuse it with mortgage. You know, mortgage is a loan you are given. And with a mortgage, you can put up your house anywhere. Even if you are coming from this region, coast region, you will put your house, you will put up your house using your mortgage at your nearest place of residence or wherever you want to be. But when you are in Nairobi, you should be paid house allowance.
I'll ask you that question later on the MPs, because but for Wanjiko watching at home, who on one hand salutes and applauds you saying more money for them in terms of minimum wage, then hears you say, let's pay our MPs who live, as I said, lavish lives. They are highly paid. Hears you say, give them more money. So, and it's taxpayers' money that's going to go to pay that MP more money. So they wonder, is SG fighting for us, really?
Let me tell you. Our MPs some of them are the poorest members of parliament.
Which
because most of members of parliament, issue of levies get it out. Because these MPs are, after election, they are expected to do everything. And I said another day.
Please name for me just 1 minute. Name for me those poor MPs.
Just let me. Let me finish, and I will explain it to you. Our MPs have been turned into private banks by Kenyans. or circles or something like that. You go to rural area, just sit quiet where there is a funeral and a member of parliament is there. If he donates about 5,000, you will hear how people will be murmuring. How they will be saying, okay, huyu tunamngojea tu, sisi tutatoa yeye. That is a poor culture with Kenyans on leadership. And as I've told you, those members of parliament I did mention, they were being elected free of charge. My own cousin, the late Martin Shikuku, he used to go to parliament. He was a member of parliament for 36 years in Butere, but he was not giving out money. We were electing him freely. At no any time he left parliament. He was there championing for the aspirations of his constituents. If he's not in parliament, he's in the library. Today, because you must look for money before elections, even to realize a quorum in that house is a big problem. Where is that culture coming from? The culture comes from the Kenyans themselves.
And perhaps where it's coming from the Kenyans, you've given a very good example, how he used to fight for the people, serve the people, ensure they're getting goods and services. If people are getting goods and services and they're happy and they're living successful lives, they will not need handouts. Isn't it perhaps also because of the failure in leadership that corruption, mismanagement, looting, so that money is not going to the people? So Wanjiko has nothing. The system's public services are all broken down. So they resort to seeking handouts. Why? Because those they've entrusted to serve them are not doing it.
Sophie, you are not from Ethiopia. Sister Sophie, you are not from Ethiopia.
I'm from here.
You are not from Uganda. Let me tell you, it is not every member of parliament who loots. Those people who are in higher positions of influence. And as I said, 2014, when I'm in Kisumu down there, a senior government officer, a highest politician of the order, he picks a telephone. He calls a procurement officer in the department. He asks that procurement officer, please, I'm directing you to give this tender to so and so. So those few members, like now I've been listening to 7 o'clock news. One member of parliament that I myself went to his constituency to make him elected. He has abandoned that constituency in Kakamega. He's now singing the tune of somebody else, how champion he is. It's me who helped the fellow to get into parliament. And now, because there is handouts where he's running to, I'm telling you.
So even the MPs are in handouts.
Absolutely.
So who will save us, sir? You cannot then champion for them to get
normally
more.
What happens?
The ones you also say are going for handouts.
Let me tell you. Maybe I haven't heard from my president, but I know when he will resurface and give a statement, it will be a statement to save this country. Why am I saying so? Every country where people have behaved the way we are behaving, it has gone through a rebirth. And it is very painful for Kenya to go through a rebirth. That is why we have been appealing to our president, His Excellency the President, to come out and help us. One, by making sure that everybody is netted. Anybody who is suspected to be in corruption or who might have stolen public money, under whatever any circumstances, without due regard to his position, must be arraigned in court. And we have been telling even. And yesterday I was happy because we were with Chief Justice in our same meeting here in Mombasa. And he said, let us not play with justice. Because if we play with justice, if we don't make justice for Kenyans, then we are attracting anarchy. Do we need to go that route? So let the president come, issue a statement. Let him not be merciful to anybody else. And as I know, he has a good team of Kinoti, he has a good team of Haji, he has a good team of Kibwana, the man.
Yeah.
Let them come out and arrest these guys. Let them not deal. But I know for sure, and I can tell you, as I see, there is no any exit for His Excellency the President and his government apart from letting these guys to.
The point you have made, very good point, that if we do not stick to the rule of law, justice will descend to anarchy.
Absolutely.
So what then do you say when the SRC, the body constitutionally mandated to set and review salaries of state officers, members of parliament are state officers. They recently unilaterally, without the okay of SRC, awarded themselves the house allowance, in fact backdating it. Isn't that not living up to the rule of law? So other Kenyans can come and say, I translate 1 and 2 to mean 3 and 4, even if there's a rule of law.
Let me tell you, it was a big mistake. I'm part of the people who championed for the constitution that we promulgated 2010. It was a big mistake to include SRC. The Global Industrial Relations Practice, where I'm the president of the Global Industrial Relations Oversight Board, which supervises the mechanism of the International Labour Conventions, allows freely negotiated wage through collective bargaining. You need to negotiate for your contract. Nobody should come in between here and say, oh, Sophie, you have agreed with the employer to give you more money than what you wanted. We are reducing it down. Or we are reducing it, or we are, we are setting. That is not accepted. If you look on the protection of wages under ILO Convention 95 of 1949, it's not of yesterday, July 1949 is when it was put in place. To protect wages, that bigger you get, if I negotiate for your salary, and that salary appears on your pay slip, it's a protected salary. Nobody should come down here and say it's advising somebody. And let me tell you, as I told you from the beginning, government is employer. If government has made some money, if we people, taxpayers, we have made money, and I will tell you something. When Kibaki took over the first time, I am kind of up to date. We were almost running our economy down. He took over a country that the GDP was minus 2% of non-performing economy. And he pushed it. Kenyans helped him to push up. A lot of investors came and we did invest.
Yeah.
It is the right of Kenyans to demand for higher wages. You see, because they have made
it. It is also the right of Kenyans that their public resources, their money hard earned in taxes, is utilized well.
Absolutely.
Because first to the point, I need an answer from you. That do you, on the point of the parliament, do you support that they went against SRC's advice?
They didn't because let me tell you. And even
SRC
they had a court
wrote
order.
a statement saying
all state officers, and they are classified as state officers.
But it's not court rulings that guide their remuneration. It is SRC. SRC has not. In fact, it termed their decision as unconstitutional. So you're saying to obey the rule of law to avoid anarchy, but then here you're saying...
Let me tell you, if I have looked at it and I looked at it afresh before I came up with a statement, most of Kenyans don't know. And I said when I was issuing that statement in support of our members of parliament, I said most of Kenyans who don't read, most of Kenyans who forget very quickly, they will think I'm crazy. The fact of the matter is that every state officer in this country earns house allowance. It might be higher than what it might have been anticipated, but the truth of the matter is that a member of parliament is entitled to house allowance, just like any other state officer.
So we have a constitutional body, SRC, for state officers meant to set and review their pay. But we are saying because we interpret it differently from what the constitutionally mandated body says, we go ahead. How are we a country of rule?
I was listening to you, Sophie.
How are we a country
I was listening
of
to you when you were talking to the Speaker of the National Assembly. I am a fan of KT and I listen to you on every, and I'm your fan in particular. You as Sophie. Let me tell you, I listened to you carefully. The Speaker of National Assembly told you in unclear terms that if these people, in non-certain terms, that if these people calling themselves SRC have a point or have a fact, or have a circumstantial evidence to prove their case right, let them move to court.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's move on to the point that SRC now to public servants, it's meant to advise. And even before SRC came into place, we used to have the ad hoc committees that still at the end of the day would be appointed by the president, who sit down and look at in terms of public management and wage policy you were talking about earlier, and still advise. So that when you say we do not need advice, they come and consider all factors, then advise, so that the negotiations you talk about that are important can come after the advice, so that there's actually something that's scientifically put together to guide those negotiations, that puts into
apart from
the factors.
Let me tell you, apart from few representatives, the one who represents workers and the one who represents the Federation of Kenya Employers, the SRC is composed by a bunch of people who don't understand the dynamics in industrial relation practice. Why do I say so? Where people, even in the parastatutes, where people like NSSF or any other government parastatute, where the management and the union have collectively negotiated and agreed on a CBA to be implemented, be registered by industrial court, they have come in and said, no, we want to advise. That is not their role. They are overstepping their mandate.
SG, the good thing about that is because then they do not have a conflict of interest. If they were to have expertise or be industrial action type of players, then they'd be compromised. Here is an arbiter coming with clean hands to say, in the state of Kenya and the dynamics in this country, this is what Kenya can afford. Do you not think we have a public wage bill problem?
Let me tell you, I don't want to negotiate with my employer.
Yeah.
And there is a dark room somewhere, somebody's just waiting there. After I have had an agreement, a peaceful agreement between me and my employer, somebody now emerges and he says, no, this is what it shouldn't be this like that. Let him come. If SRC wants to negotiate with the trade unions, we are ready for them. Right. We have figures, we have data, and we will prove our case. We are monitoring the economic performance of our country and of which and for every sector of our economic activities, from agriculture, manufacturing, finance, and so on. Yes. We are monitoring. Let them come and prove us otherwise. Not an issue of coming out there and say, oh, this CBA cannot be registered. That is overstepping their mandate. And I want to tell you this. Githu Muigai, the former Attorney General,
yes,
he wrote to us. We did seek his advice for on the role of SRC. And he said SRC is not supposed to interfere where unions and employers, particularly in parastatals, where they have freely entered into negotiations and agreed. Because we look into all these parameters, but it can only advise those state officers. They have overstepped their mandate and outlived their usefulness. Yes. And fortunately enough, Sophie, let me tell you, the Constitution is coming. It is me who proposed it last year in May 1st. I said we need to look at our Constitution. And now everybody is clamoring for Kenyans to look into our Constitution. And one of the areas we are going to look at is SRC still relevant? And I know we are going to get support of all MCS, of all members of parliament, of every Kenyan of goodwill to do away with the SRC.
We have a lot of feedback that has come in. I will pick one question from Dr. Miguna. He tweeted in and said, to Francis Atwoli, why do you spend time dancing, showing off bling and campaigning for dispos, than advocating for the 75% unemployed youth? Why don't you advocate for workers to earn a living wage and have universal and compulsory health care coverage? In quotes, he says NHIF is useless. And 170 likes from that message. Perhaps people who are endorsing the question that he's asking, briefly to that question.
Oh, I want to thank Mikuna. For the first time, he has really touched on very pertinent issues. I want to thank him very highly. And I would like to be part of those who are championing for him to return back to Kenya and assist us in this struggle. A living wage in 1987, Sophie, we carried out a research as quote. That was during Mugalla's time, 1 year after he had been elected in 1986. And then we settled at 35,000 shillings per month for anybody, for a Kenyan or a worker who have a family of 4 living in East Lands. That was 1987 long. Now, if we go to tabulation, if we go to economic interest, that how much one is supposed to be paid today in the year 2019, a living wage that you are, the minimum living wage in Kenya will be about 100,000 shillings. Per lowly placed person, that will be just a sweeper, which is about, I should say, that should be around 10,000, 1,000. Either Swiss franc or US dollars equivalent. And this is what is happening outside. And this will have to push also the cost of living more higher than what it is today. So there are a lot of things we consider about that. And that is why you have said, for us to attract both direct and indirect investment, we must also check on our demands. And as a responsible labor movement in Kenya, we have also consulted our employers, we have consulted government, and we have always reached at a level or a minimum wage that can also make us attract investors in this country and sustain employment and even create more employment opportunities. I want to thank him for that. The other area I want to thank Miguna for is his concern in other areas, what's happening at NHF and other places where we don't represent workers. It is really pathetic. It is only that I sit on the board of NSSF. That is why we stopped politicians from plundering that. But at NHF, why I don't sit, they stole almost everything. All
right, thank you very much. In 30 seconds, you have stayed very long in This is Tony Shege in Kotu. When do you intend to retire? Perhaps you should join politics. Perhaps run for president, he proceeds to say.
I want to thank him very much, but I didn't want to go into politics. All my predecessors were members of parliament and so on. And more so, the most celebrated Labour leader in the world, the late Tom Mboya, he was the Secretary General of the ruling party and a powerful Minister of Economic and Planning. And he would, if he didn't die early, he would have been a president of this republic. I don't intend to go to politics, and I don't intend now because I wanted to retire 2010, workers refused. I don't also intend to retire from Kotu.
Okay. Well said, and that's a good point to wrap it up, SG. Asante sana. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us here on Checkpoint. Central Organization of Trade Unions Kenya Secretary General, Brother Francis Atwoli, with us and saying it as he sees it. We thank you for staying with us. We're taking a break, but that's it from me and the great team from Checkpoint here in Mombasa tonight. The lovely Sharon Momanyi will be continuing with the rest of the show from Nairobi. Sports News will be coming up from Nairobi. Have a good night and thank you for watching.